Let's take a better look at reflections in the coordinate plane. A reflection is a rigid transformation in which all of your points of your preimage are going to flip over a line of reflection. So when that happens, each preimage and image point will be the same distance to that line. So in this image down below, if you're looking at R and R prime, the length, and I'm just going to label that point right there, the length from R to the line is the same length as R prime to that line. And that's true between any image and preimage. Also, the line that connects R to R prime will be perpendicular to that line of reflection. So that would be a 90-degree angle. So you can reflect over any line that exists, but we are going to be limited to 4 different lines. First is reflecting over the x-axis. When you reflect over the x-axis, the x-coordinate is going to stay the same. However, the y-coordinate is going to become the opposite. So that would be your coordinate notation. For your shorthand notation, you're going to use a lowercase r, and then you're going to write whatever line you're reflecting over. So if we're reflecting over the x-axis, as a subscript, we're going to write x-axis. Remember that the x-axis is horizontal. So if you're, have a point at the top, it's going to flip to the bottom. Or if it's in the bottom, it flips to the top. That's why the y-coordinate is changing and not the x-coordinate, because it's the y value that's switching. For reflection over the y-axis, since that y-axis is vertical, we're going from one side to the other, the x-coordinate will become the opposite, but the y-coordinate will stay the same for your coordinate notation. For your shorthand notation, y-axis is your subscript to the lowercase r. For reflection over any horizontal lines are in this form y equals b. You might remember the phrase HOI from last year, and that was to help remind you that horizontal lines were y equals. The O is actually for a 0 slope, which you don't need to know that the slope is 0 for the purposes of this. There is no coordinate notation. It's just the shorthand notation, so you'll do your lowercase r, and then you'll, whatever line it says. So if it says y equals 2, you write y equals 2, but I'm going to put a b there because it may not be 2, it may be something else. And then for your vertical line is VUX. Vertical lines have an undefined slope, and they're written in the form x equals. No coordinate notation as well, but you're going to do x equals whatever the number is for your subscript. All right, so for our first example, we're going to reflect triangle ABC over the x-axis. So first, make sure you know that the x-axis is this horizontal axis right here. And you can do this in 2 ways. You can count, or you can use the rule. Most students are going to prefer to count, so I'll start with that method, and then I'll show you how to use the rule as well. So A is at -3, 2. -3, 2 is 2 units above the x-axis. So to get A prime, we have to count 2 units below the x-axis, which would put it at -3, -2. B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units above. So we would have to count 7 units below. So that would put B prime at 1, -7. And then C is 1 unit below, so now we're going to count 1 unit above, and that would put C prime at 4, 1. And you can connect your points, and that should be a mirror image. What you should hopefully notice is that this has opposite orientation. If I go from A to B, that is a clockwise direction. But if I go from A prime to B prime, that is a counterclockwise direction. So reflections have opposite orientation. The rule, if you look at the coordinates, what happened is that your x coordinate stayed exactly the same, but your y coordinate changed to the opposite. So you can get the rule by looking at the point. So if you forget the rule, it's kind of nice with a reflection is you can figure the rule out. The way to write that in the shorthand notation is a lowercase r and then you Okay, so now we're going to reflect over the y-axis. Again, make sure you know what the y-axis is. It's this vertical line right here. So again, count or use the rule. Since I counted last time, I'm going to use the rule this time. So the rule for reflecting over the y-axis is xy maps, and then it's opposite x, same y. So your x coordinates become the opposite. So in A, the x coordinate is -3. It's going to become +3. And the y coordinate, it just says y, so that means it stays the same. For B prime, the x coordinate is 1. It's going to become the opposite, but the y coordinate stays the same. For C, the x coordinate is 4. It becomes the opposite, but the y coordinate stays the same. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The other option would be to count A. So again, if you wanted to count, A is 3 units away from the y-axis, so you would just count 3 units in the opposite direction, which would be A prime, and that puts it at 3, 2, which is the same point we got if we followed the rule. From B to the y-axis is 1 unit, so if you count 1 unit in the opposite direction, that would be -1,7. Again, the same point we got with the rule. And then for C, it's 4 units away, so if we count 4 units in the opposite direction, that puts us at -4, -1, which is the same point we got. The only thing we need to do is the rule in the other form, so that's going to be an R with a subscript of y-axis. So now we're going to reflect over the line y equals 2. Go to where y is 2 and then draw a horizontal line. There is no coordinate notation rule, so you are going to have to count on this one. So for point A is actually on the line, so it will stay the same coordinates. A and A prime will be in the same place. B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units above, so if we count 5 units below, for B prime, that puts us at 1, -3. And C is 3 units below, so we'll count 3 units above for C prime. That puts us at 4, 5. Connect the points. There is your image. And then there is no coordinate notation, so it's just going to be your lowercase r, and then the line you reflected over, y equals 2, as your subscript. In this example, we're going to reflect over the line x equals -1, so go to where x is -1 and draw a vertical line. And again, there is no coordinate notation rule, so you're going to have to count. So A is 2 units to the left, so count 2 units to the right for A prime. That puts you at 1, 2. B is 2 units to the right, so you're going to count 2 units to the left for B prime, and that puts us at -3, 7. And finally, C is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right, so we'll count 5 units to the left. And that puts us at -6, -1. Connect your points, and then your rule, your lowercase r with your subscript of x equals -1. For the last few examples, we're identifying what it reflected over. So to do that, find the middle of your pre-image and your image. So you can focus on one point. So for this example, I'm going to look and find the middle between Z and Z prime, and that is this vertical line right here. That vertical line is x equals -2. So this is a reflection over x equals -2. Since that is not the x-axis or the y-axis, there's no coordinate notation, so I'm just going to do my shorthand notation, my lowercase r, and then the subscript of x equals -2. If you looked between x and x prime, it'd be the same middle line, and same thing between y and y prime. So for example, 5b, the middle between a and a prime is right here, this vertical line. And that is the y-axis. So this is a reflection over the y-axis. The rule for reflecting over the y-axis in shorthand notation is the r and then the subscript of y-axis. But in coordinate notation, you either need to memorize the rule or you need to know how to get the rule from looking at the point. So I'm going to show you how to do that in case you forget. A is -1, 4, and a prime is +1, 4. So if you compare the x coordinates switched from negative to positive, so it became the opposite, and then the y coordinates stayed the same, so it's just y. So the rule would be opposite x, y. For this example, again, find the middle between a and a prime, d and d prime, c and c prime. That is going to be the x-axis. So this is a reflection over the x-axis. To get the rule, the easy rule is the shorthand notation, your r with x-axis as a subscript. And for the coordinate notation, you got to figure out what happened to your x-coordinate and your y-coordinate. So if you memorize the rule, then you can just write the rule. If you don't have it memorized, pick one of your points. So I'm going to use A. A is -4, 1, and A prime is -4, -1. So my x-coordinates stayed the same. However, the y-coordinate went from positive to negative, so it became the opposite. So x, -y, or opposite y. And for our final reflection, again, pick any 2 points and find the middle. So I'm going to use Q and Q prime. And you might have to kind of work your way to the middle. It looks like it's right here at y equals -1, but you can use your other points to figure that out. And that is right in the middle of r and r prime and p prime. So that is a reflection over y equals -1. There is no coordinate notation, so just your shorthand notation, r with a subscript of y equals -1.